My name is Deana Prasad. I'm 13 years old. I started doing calligraphy in school when I had a friend who introduced it to me. I really just watched her and the movements that she made and the way that she holds the pens. Then I went online and I found other examples of calligraphy for me to use to teach myself. I would define entrepreneurship as almost the mindset of taking responsibility and providing what the customer needs and making sure that you are meeting and exceeding their expectations. My secret sauce, in a way, to make customers happy is by keeping them updated on changes that are going on with the product. I normally have my customer's number, so every time I make the design or I change it, I will send them a picture until we find one that is perfect. The hardest thing that I experienced was when I would have customers who, again, don't really know what they want, and it's sometimes giving them an idea and them not liking it and having to keep finding new ideas.
So we're going to talk a little bit in more detail about customer service. I've alluded to this stuff, but again, if I had to reduce this thing down for those of you who want to cheat in the program, which is fine by me, by the way, you can just keep it real easy. Find something that you like to do, something where you kind of know the business, right? And serve customers well, you're going to be fine. In 99% of businesses, it's really that simple. So I'm going to dive into customer service a bit more, and some of this is definitely going to be redundant. You show up on time, dress appropriately, you want to look professional. You're going to be a little nervous in the beginning if you're a human being, and you're probably a human being, so be a little nervous. Don't worry about being nervous. And I don't even remember this. I'm talking into this little box right now, and I keep forgetting this. Just deliver the content you need to deliver when you're talking with customers or you're selling. Don't worry about how you do it. Just try to get information to that customer, right? So it's all about, in the presentation part of the customer engagement process, being attentive, really important. I always like to ask, did I do a good job? Is there something I can do better? Are there other products or services I can offer as part of this? I always want to learn from my customers. I want to listen. So after you're done doing the work, just chat with them for a couple of minutes. Some people will chat with you for 2 hours, and it'll get into baseball and football and politics and all these things you don't want to talk about. But a lot of people, most people, will talk for about 5 or 10 minutes. You ask them about what they're doing, how things are going for them, but try to slide it into, how can I make my product or service better for you? And they'll tell you. People always have opinions. It's amazing, right? People will very rarely tell you when they're dissatisfied. Now, they'll go to Yelp or something like that. They'll write it there. Or they'll have an internal a bitterness about their experience with you. But very few people will confront you and say, I'm not happy. But a lot of people will take that information and tell other people. And that's word of mouth advertising in reverse. And don't ever forget that. That's why you always got to ask the customer if they're happy, because they might not be. And if they're not happy with your product or service, instead of getting defensive, learn and get better. By the way, I'm going to tell you a story. This is going to make you feel better maybe when you're out there. And this is when I was a little older. I was in college, and I was in Connecticut, and I was running a contracting business. I just want to tell you a good example of a customer service disaster story. So if you ever run into one, you'll feel better. But it was Connecticut in the middle of the summer, about 90, 93 degrees, very hot every day. And my company, my crew, was painting above a blue slate walkway in the backyard. And at that time, I was trying to manage all these different crews and all these different things I was doing. And they had these paint buckets above the blue slate walkway. And it really wasn't a walkway. It was almost like a patio. It was really big. And some of you will be able to relate to this if you've kind of been in this environment. You know what I'm talking about patios and bluestone, which, if you drop anything on it, it's really hard to get anything off of it, right? Anyway, my guys were working above the patio, and they were painting underneath the awning of a house. And I was looking at the paint buckets, and they were precariously balanced off of hooks. And I remember saying to the manager there, I said, "Hey, listen, be careful. Be careful, because that paint might drop on that bluestone, and if it does, we're going to be in a world of hurt, because we're going to have to take paint drops off of the bluestone." And I remember he said to me, he goes, "Well, it's latex paint. We'll be able to wash it off." And I go, No. Just because it's latex paint does not mean it's easy to get off. Long story short, I come back from lunch. What happened? Big, huge splat of paint on the bluestone, and I mean it went everywhere. And the guys panicked. So what they did was they took a hose and they put it on the splat, and it shot thousands of paint drops all over the bluestone. I mean, it was everywhere. And making matters worse, and I'm not blaming the customer, because we had paint all over his walkway or patio, but he was one of these people, difficult, a little bit difficult even before the accident. And he comes and he goes, "What are you going to do to get the paint off the bluestone? This is slate. It's really thick slate." And I'm like, "You can't move the slate out of there." And so we had to go in 90-degree weather for 2 weeks, 4 guys, chipping paint off every single paint drop off. And then during the day, he'd come in the middle of the heat and he'd be like, "Well, it still doesn't look good enough for me." And I was like, "Oh, wow." So that lasted, as I recall, a couple of weeks. And it's a good example of where it's easy to say that you are for customer service, but are you really going to do the right thing? Because we eventually got the paint off his patio. Are you going to do the right thing when things aren't easy? But if you do that in general, people are going to think well of you, and you'll be able to build your business. But that was a good example of something you might run into, which is maybe a customer that's not totally reasonable, but where you also mess up. And even then, you got to do the right thing.